You'll be shocked, but even in our time, piracy is still prevalent on the open seas. What's more, these are very dangerous bandits that need to be defended against. In this video, I'll tell you why pirates still exist today, where they dwell, and how trading ships protect themselves from them. And towards the end of the video, you'll hear a very interesting story about how the USSR deterred pirates from attacking their ships. Enjoy watching. Did you know that pirates have been around not just for centuries, but even thousands of years? Yes, the first mentions of maritime bandits date back to years before our era. In fact, they emerged around the same time as the first trading ships. And when you think about it, it all makes sense. Why rob land convoys with goods where you're likely to encounter guards and soldiers nearby, when you can raid ships with just about 10 crew members and a huge pile of goods? Hence, piracy originated from this logic. However, modern pirates are nothing like the heroes of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. They resemble more of a full-fledged army, armed to the teeth. They reside near the most popular trade routes, where huge cargo ships constantly pass by, with cargoes worth the budget of some small countries. You might wonder, how can pirates still exist in the 21st century? Well, I'll tell you. Easily. The thing is, modern maritime bandits originate from African countries. And as everyone probably knows, some of the countries on this continent are not the wealthiest. There are enormous problems in literally all spheres, not to mention crime. What can you expect when sometimes it's hard to find drinking water in Africa? The echo of war in Somalia has also had a significant impact. There's plenty of weapons, but the country is in ruins. There's not even enough food, so the residents look for any ways to earn as much money as possible. As I've mentioned, modern pirates differ greatly from their ancient predecessors. No one will attack huge and fast cargo ships with spears and bows anymore. Nowadays, bandits have quite modern weaponry: assault rifles, grenade launchers, and even rocket launchers. If in the early 2000s all this armament was old and rusty, then decades later, these pirates resemble more of a private army. And at the beginning of their journey, they used to go to sea on old leaky boats, which very rarely caught up with modern ships. But now, thieves use the most modern and fastest military boats in the world. How do they attack them? They simply catch up with a cargo ship, approach it from the stern, and board it. Even a small group of bandits armed with firearms can seize a ship. So, most often, attacks occur using several groups on a couple of boats. Pirates can also use rocket launchers or grenade launchers. Most often, they're used to destroy some objects on the deck or to disable the ship's control systems. And the most astonishing fact to me is that pirates use quite modern resources to track passing ships. Besides cool radars that help navigate the open ocean, they also use a special application called marine traffic. It's an analog of the well-known flight radar that tracks all vessels in real time. This site shows the ship's route, the companies that own it, and even the presence of security. Thanks to this feature, pirates find it much easier to operate. Imagine you can attack not just any passing ship, but specifically target those ships that won't be able to resist you. In general, let's hope that such a feature will be removed sooner rather than later. Otherwise, it turns out that modern people are putting sticks in their own wheels. Naturally, nobody likes this situation. No one wants to lose billions of dollars because of a couple of foolish natives with rifles. Unfortunately, this still happens. And even working as an ordinary sailor, you don't want to risk your life just because you're transporting cargo. So what's the solution for all transportation workers? I know the answer. They simply hire armed security. There are generally two types of such security. The first is government-owned. This is when you contract with a regular army. They send several armed soldiers to your ship who should protect you in case of any danger. However, according to the reviews I found, this is not the best option. The thing is, the prices for security of merchant ships from governments are very high. And they might send yesterday's private who, God forbid, shot at targets at fairground in his hometown. Moreover, the governments of some countries hinder trading companies. Some states literally oblige ships to use only their protection and prohibit turning to external companies. Speaking of which, there are also private mercenaries who are armed to the teeth and very well trained. The prices for such services are lower than if you turn to the government, and they protect about the same way. However, they won't board your ship in port. All such mercenaries are located on special floating bases in neutral waters. This is done so that there are no legal issues regarding possession of weapons. So, the merchant ship just comes to a specially designated place, a boat with armed people approaches them, and that's it. And they disembark them at the end of the route in the open sea, just the same way. And I understand why this is done. Imagine you are transporting tons of wheat, and you have people with rifles on board. You can't avoid bureaucracy, and maybe even prison. Today, I mostly talk about mercenaries, because in general, their work doesn't differ much if the ship were guarded by the military. So, what are they armed with? Trained individuals with firearms are brought aboard the ship. These are ordinary rifles and, of course, ammunition for them. The number of weapons your guards will possess, as well as the mercenaries themselves, depends solely on your budget. For particularly valuable cargoes, teams of 15 to 20 people are often hired. But if your company decides to save money, you might end up with 3 to 4 people on board, each armed with a rifle if you are lucky. Instead of rifles, machine guns and grenade launchers, as well as water cannons, can also be used. Once the mercenaries come aboard, they immediately start setting up firing points using whatever is available. Everything that can provide some protection against bullets will be used. Barbed wire is also used around the perimeter of the ship. Their job is not easy because it takes several days to pass through a dangerous area. And during all this time, your security will be on high alert. Several people on board will be on watch 24 hours a day, expecting an attack at any moment. But they are paid a lot. Still, I wouldn't advise you even to consider such work. Guarding a ship is not as simple as it may seem. You'll have to stand under the scorching sun for days, or in very cold and humid weather. Not to mention that it's a very dangerous job in itself. And yes, if you think that pirates can't come anywhere near a well-protected ship, you're very mistaken. I found an article where an interview was taken from one such mercenary, and he described all the stages of action in case of an attack. In general, no one plans to shoot indiscriminately at the pirates. The thing is, if a mercenary kills someone and there are witnesses who can appeal to the court, he won't escape punishment. That's why the guards simply warn the bandits that they won't have it easy. Often pirates retreat just upon seeing an armed person on board. If the presence of weapons doesn't scare off the thieves, warning shots are fired into the air. This is another way to avoid confrontations. And I'll tell you, it's very effective. After all, most pirates immediately turn away. But if that doesn't work either, warning shots will be aimed toward the attackers directly on the water. But what if you encounter particularly persistent bandits? Can you shoot at them by now? And here you are also wrong. The next step is to shoot at the boat to disable it. However, this is very difficult to do because they move very fast. And pirates board without hesitation, without worrying that they might fall into the water and get caught in the propeller. Well, if they've already approached the ship, can you shoot at them? Yes and no. Mercenaries aim for the hands and legs to disable the pirate. And of course, water cannons are used, which can easily disable anyone. And only as a last resort, when the pirates are already on board and fighting, can you shoot anywhere. This is about saving lives, so no one will think twice. However, even in such cases, you can end up in prison for murder. And to protect themselves from punishment, mercenaries use special action cameras that record all their actions. In case they end up in court, it will be easy to prove their innocence. But a much more interesting operation was decided to be carried out by the leadership of the USSR. In the 1950s, attacks on Soviet ships near Taiwan were quite common. Generally, in those years, pirates robbed not only ships under the flag of the USSR, but also all the others. But only in the Union they came up with a radical solution to the problem. The country's leadership was greatly bothered by all these pirates. And to deter any desire to attack their container ships and tankers, they disguised a huge landing ship as a regular cargo vessel. And what surprises me a lot is that they did it very well. After all, the pirates really fell for this bait. One fine day, dozens of boats appeared on the horizon. They were all manned by armed bandits who would attack any ship without hesitation. But what amazes me the most is that all these pirates showed no mercy to the crew. Ordinary sailors were subjected to beatings, rape, and some were even killed. So it was decided to treat the pirates the same way. When the boats approached the ship and the bandits went on board, the military removed the camouflage from the ship and opened fire on the unwanted guests. Moreover, there were several hundred heavily armed Marines on board, who were also very well trained. In general, the pirates had absolutely no chance of winning this battle. According to rumors, they were all destroyed within a few minutes, and none of the bandits returned home. This incident had a huge resonance in the criminal world. Literally everyone was talking about what had happened. And thanks to this operation, pirates no longer bothered Soviet ships. Everyone just feared approaching them. After all, who knows what new trick the USSR might come up with? Unfortunately, nowadays there are no factors that could scare off pirates. Every day, maritime bandits rob and kill, and it's not necessarily huge cargo ships. And where do you think these criminals are most common? Of course, near the most important global trade routes. And most often in the bays, where it's easiest to attack ships. Specifically for this video, I searched for up-to-date information on where pirates are often encountered. And here's what I found. The famous Pirates of the Caribbean movie series is still relevant. Piracy and crime are flourishing in the Caribbean right now. Encountering pirates there is as common as anything. Perhaps the most famous of all are the Somali pirates. They're also the most dangerous. Unfortunately for us, Somalia is located right where the famous trade route passes. By the way, about 12% of all world trade goods move along this route, and slightly above on the continent lies the notorious Suez Canal, which a few years ago was blocked by a huge container ship. Then world trade suffered greatly, and prices soared for everything, and Somalia is right there in that bay. In general, for the residents of this poor country, there was no other option but to become pirates. And it happened after 2005, right after the civil war in the country. Then ordinary fishermen and residents lost their jobs, but they still needed to eat, so they turned to crime, especially since they found a huge amount of weapons somewhere. Another habitat for modern pirates is the Malacca Strait. It is located between Malaysia and Sumatra. About 30% of all annual ship attacks occur in this area. Generally, these bandits haven't been hijacking ships for a long time. After all, hiding a huge machine so that no one notices it, and then selling the entire cargo for billions of dollars on the black market is simply impossible. So pirates just attack ships, take sailors hostage, and demand ransom for them. And they usually steal money, provisions, and whatever can be easily sold. There have been many cases where attackers took only the currency that sailors had with them and kept in a safe. So billions of dollars are not in the cards for any of the pirates, but hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's quite possible. In any case, even $100,000 is a very large sum for trading companies. Not to mention the risks of paying insurance and compensating the close relatives of sailors who may suffer at the hands of bandits. So it's much easier to protect everyone with trained mercenaries. And there are firms that provide such services all over the world, so anyone can find themselves a guard within their budget. Well, I hope that all this piracy will end soon, and going out into the ocean and sea will be without the fear of death. In this video, I've told you about modern pirates, how trading companies and ships defend against them, and also which places in the world's oceans are best to avoid. Thanks for watching.